Hello YouTube, welcome back to a brand new video presented by Red Pilled American, and here I am to update you the latest news in regard to the latest bill that is currently being presented by Congress and that has actually passed Congress, called the SAVE Act. So here it is. So HR 22 is the name of the bill. It's called the Safeguard American Eligibility Act, or the SAVE Act. This bill requires documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. So, if passed, the bill will require, in order to vote, you have to show proof of citizenship to vote. So obviously, it's going to prohibit states from accepting applications to register to vote without some sort of proof of citizenship first to do so. So, and this basically it complies with the Real ID Act of 2005 that indicates U.S. citizenship. So it seems to just be kind of codifying that into the law that kind of already exists. So the further bill prohibits states from registering an individual to vote in a federal election unless, at the time individual applies to register to vote, the individual provides documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, and requires states to establish alternative process under which an applicant may submit other evidence to demonstrate U.S. citizenship. So yes, there are other types of identity to show so you can vote. There's generally birth certificates. There's generally your passport. There's government IDs. There's way to show proof so you can be able to vote. So, and there will be some ways to make some changes so everyone has the chance to vote if they want to vote. So what it does is it requires states to not also remove non-citizenships from the voter rolls. So in some states, there are people on there that are not necessarily citizens that are on the voter rolls, and it requires states to clean those voter rolls up. So the bill also would make it a crime for people who are voting illegally, but also it would make it punishable for for election officials who manage the election process to register people who aren't documented here. So if they are caught doing so, there will be some punishment for that. Big punishment. So with that being said, that's what I have so far. So I'm going to show you, because there something from Carolyn Leavitt, because there's a lot of fear mongering. Democrats are lying and saying that this is going to impact married women, because oftentimes in their birth certificate specifically it will show their maiden name and not their husband's name, and so they're going to say that, well, married women won't be able to vote. Well, again, they're lying. They're leaving the part that there's ways to change that so they can vote, but they want to scare women into thinking that they can't vote. So again, Trump's press secretary debunks it. So I'm going to play it so hopefully you guys can hear it in the background. So here we go.
Want to give a voice. The new voter ID requirements may inhibit their access to the polls. What assurances can you give women voters in America to ease their concerns?
Sure. Well, the SAVE Act, as you mentioned, was passed by the House yesterday. This is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. I believe I'm getting that correct. And this act is a common sense measure. It would require proof of citizenship for voting in our elections. The Democrats have been fear-mongering about this bill, have been saying that married women, if their name has changed, they didn't change it on their identification, would not be able to vote. That is complete fallacy. There are outlined in the bill about how to avoid that. The president very much supports a common sense solution to ensuring that only citizens can engage in our elections. This is critical to improving the integrity of our elections and also the trust that American citizens need to have in our electoral process. So the president supports this bill, and that is a myth that has been proven wrong by the text of this bill. And I believe some of the co-sponsors of the bill have been very vocal in addressing that. And certainly I myself, as a married woman, would not stand before this podium if the president did not support such a common sense measure.
Thank you. For my next question.
All right. Well, you heard it from her. That's the press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, and she debunks this whole thing. So with that being said, now I'm gonna debunk some myths that the left is spewing. So I'm gonna read you what is being presented here. Okay. So again, it will address by requiring proof of citizenship in order to vote in federal elections. To ensure that there is integrity in our elections, it amends the National Voter Registration Act to require states to verify citizenship when it registers an individual to vote. Give states the tools to remove non-citizens from their voter rolls and penalize officials that knowingly register non-citizens. So here are the myths that Democrats are spewing. The SAVE Act, so here's what it does. You have a myth and then it gives a fact of basically debunking what Dems are saying. So here's one myth. There's at least, let me see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's at least 6 myths or lies that Dems are spewing to fearmonger. And here's one of them. The first one. The SAVE Act would prohibit married women or anyone who has changed their name from voting. And that's been debunked. That's a lie. Here's the fact. This is fake news. Under the SAVE Act, those individuals who have updated their documentary proof of citizenship, which in those IDs will be the real ID, passport, or government-issued identification with their place of birth, no action is needed, and they can register to vote. For the small fraction of individuals who have not yet updated their documentation to reflect a name change, which most do immediately for other life purposes. So, no, it tells you right here what to do and how to change that so you can vote. In fact, I'll probably link this to the bottom when I'm done with this video so you guys can read it yourself if you want. So here's another myth. The SAVE Act would require everyone to have a U.S. passport to register to vote. That's a myth. The fact says the SAVE Act merely requires documentary proof of United States citizens to register to vote. This is not just limited to passports, but can include a real ID, a U.S. military ID card together with paperwork showing the place of birth was in the United States and any valid government identification. So no, you don't need to have a passport to vote, register to vote. And there's plenty of ways to show your proof than just with the passport. There's ways to do that, and their facts are right here. So, another myth. In federal elections, we have no evidence of illegals voting. Again, that's been debunked. There is ample evidence of non-citizens registering to vote. One study in 2014, 2008, and 2010 found that non-citizens voted likely consist of, let me see. Okay. So it does found that non-citizens voted and likely impacted the outcome in several races. And it shows that Virginia removed over 1,000, around almost 1,500 voters that were added to the rolls that were not citizens. And also in North Carolina, they had a similar problem with that. And you have more cases of that happening in states, more happening. So another myth. The SAVE Act is unnecessary because it is already illegal for non-citizens to vote. Well, while only U.S. citizens can legally, here's the thing though, and here's a fact. And I almost said that wrong. It says, while only citizens can legally vote in federal elections, the National Registration Act effectively stops states from checking citizenship during registration, preventing the law from being enforced. The SAVE Act is needed to require states to verify U.S. citizenship when registering individuals to vote in federal elections. So it's basically enforcing it and making sure that it's actually being enforced. Because it sounds to me, it stops the states from checking. Okay, I got it now. Yep. Removes them from voter rolls, penalizes officials. Again, already said that. Another myth. The SAVE Act will make it impossible for U.S. service members to vote if deployed abroad. Again, that's been debunked. The bill does not amend the Uniformed Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act and leaves in place procedures and safeguards for service members abroad to vote in absentee elections. And in fact, service members are already known for being citizens. They have to be. So there's ways to accommodate that so they can vote. So and the last one here, the SAVE Act, which is another myth by the left. The SAVE Act is unconstitutional and violates the principles of federalism. Again, that is false. The Election Clause, the Naturalization Clause, and the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendment clearly give Congress the authority to enact the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is a narrow bill that simply strengthens the law that has governed federal elections process for 30 years. So yes, that's what the bill is. In a way, a lot of this already exists. People say, well, why do we need this law? It already exists. Well, it basically reinforces it because currently in its current form, it hasn't been enforced, and it seems a lot of laws can have loopholes around it. So it really just takes out the loopholes and just makes sure it's being enforced. So, but yes, so that's what I have for now on that. Unfortunately, the good news is it did pass the House. However, to overcome the filibuster it has to get 60 votes, and we don't have those votes to do that unless I think it was at least 7 Democrats have to cross over, which is really unlikely because they seem to not want these common sense bills to pass. And people wonder why. We accuse them of wanting illegals to vote because they do, and it's already happening. So it's really their base. So I don't know. We'll see. I guess anything can happen, but this definitely does put their backs against the wall because if it gets blocked, then Democrats just told the whole nation that illegals should be allowed to vote. But here's the thing. If they block this legislation, I think Republicans need to nuke the filibuster, which would basically take away needing 60 votes and then repass this for a simple majority so this can become law. This is ridiculous. This has to get passed. We need election integrity. I am sick of every election cycle having to wonder if my elections are secured and wondering if the person that won legitimately or not. So the question you need to be asking is, because even some people will say, well, even if there were some illegals who voted, did it have impact on the election? Well, first of all, there's already evidence, I read it to you, that yes, there are some facts of illegals voting that did impact the election. But even if it didn't, it doesn't matter. We should not have votes counted for people who aren't legally here. That's the point of the bill. So, call it what you want, but that's fact, and that's what everyone agrees with, other than the far left, and of course that seems to want the illegals to vote. Of course, the left generally say illegal. The really far progressives will say illegals should be allowed to vote because they pay taxes, which is ridiculous. They're still not citizens, and so they should not have voice in this election. They don't have rights, really, if they're not part of this country. So, I don't know. That's all I have for now. I mean, again, I do think it's going to get blocked. But like I said, I think I'll probably make another video once we know if it's been blocked or not. So I'll do that again once I hear something. But that's all I have for now. So if you like this video, please subscribe and check out my channel if you're interested. Also click the bell for notifications. Again, I will be linking the bill and the facts that I read to you on my comment section, so you guys can have a little bit of documentary proof of what I read. So feel free to read that if you want to read for yourself. But anyway, that's all I have for you now. Peace out. Red Pilled American. Have a good day. A good weekend.